didn't have nothing to do with killing those people. Period.
And I don't lie, so I know what I would say then.
I told you that all the way down the line. I wasn't around anyone when they were killed.
And I certainly wouldn't tell nobody to go in and do nothing to anybody that I wouldn't want done to me.
I'm not saying I'm not capable of doing it myself. But I'm just saying this, I did not do that.
Mr. Manson is a remorseless, cold-blooded murderer.
Everyone says that I was the leader of those people, but I was actually a follower.
Mr. Manson and I both know that he will never be suitable for parole.
They should stay in prison for the rest of their lives, like my sister will stay in her grave.
I didn't have nothing to do with killing those people.
You're going to win, helter skelter. You're going to win your reality.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. If I could ask you to take your glasses off, please. Thank you.
We're on, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, we're on the record. This will be a subsequent parole consideration hearing for Charles Manson. ID number is B33920. On 4/22 of 1971, the prisoner was received in CDC pursuant to Penal Code Section 1168, violation of Penal Code Section 8 counts of 187. That's first-degree murder out of Los Angeles County. Their case number is A253156, counts 1 through 7, and the controlling minimum eligible parole date is 12/13/78. The prisoner was also received on the same date for violation of Penal Code Section 187, one count of first-degree murder out of Los Angeles County, case number A267861. It's count 1. Today's date is March 27, 1997. We're located at Corcoran State Prison. The time is approximately 1:30 p.m. We're going to start by establishing voice identification by each of us, stating our first name and last name, spelling our last name. Mr. Manson, when we get around the table to you, if after you spell your last name, if you'll give me your CDC number. We'll start with Mr. Douglas, and we'll go to his left.
Mike Douglas, D-O-U-G-L-A-S, Deputy Commissioner of Board of Prison Terms.
My name is Steve Baker, B-A-K-E-R, Commissioner with the Board of Prison Terms.
My name is Arthur Van Court, V-A-N, capital C-O-U-R-T, Commissioner, Board of Prison Terms.
Charles Millis Scott Manson, B33920, and all the rest of them.
Can we just spell your last name, Mr. Manson?
M-A-N-S-O-N.
Thank you. Mr. Kay.
Yes, Stephen Kay from the District Attorney's Office in Los Angeles, and my last name is spelled K-A-Y.
Stephen Kay from his mother.
Okay.
Gary Higgins, H-I-G-G-I-N-S, Classification and Parole Representative.
Laura Flemate, F-L-E-M-A-T-E, Office Assistant.
Victor J. Castillo, C-A-S-T-I-L-L-O, Assistant CMPR.
Officer A. Dos Santos, D-E-L-O-S-S-A-N-T-O-S, Correctional Officer, CSP Corcoran.
M. Martins, M-A-R-T-I-N-S, Officer.
Stephanie Hard, Hanford Central, S-T-E-F-A-N-I-E-H-A-R-D.
The cameraman, please.
Don Menzel, M-E-N-Z-E-L.
Mary Grady, G-R-A-D-Y, KCBS-TV.
Sheldon Gajarian, G-A-J-A-R-I-A-N, KMPH.
All right, thank you, everyone. Mr. Manson, the purpose of today's hearing is to again consider your suitability for parole, and arriving at a decision will consider the commitment offense, prior criminality, and social history, as well as your behavior since your commitment. We have reviewed your central file and the prior transcripts, and we'll give you an opportunity to make any corrections or any clarifications to the record. And incorporate by reference a statement of fact from the decision summary dated December 1st, 1982, pages 2 through 6. Then we'll go directly to your progress since your last hearing, the new psychiatric reports, and any other information which has a bearing on parole suitability. Any change in your parole plan should be brought to our attention at that time. And before we recess for deliberation, the district attorney and the prisoner will be given an opportunity to make a short presentation regarding parole suitability and the length of confinement. Certain rights that you have for this hearing: you have a right of a timely notice of the hearing, and your file was made available to you for review. You have the right to present any relevant documents. Do you have any documents to present to the board today that we don't already have?
Well, I'm not much into the clerical perspective of this particular chamber of thought.
Okay, so we pretty much have all the documents that we're going to have. Is that
well, I imagine you wrote them. They're yours.
Okay. You also have a right to an impartial panel. Do you have any problems with a panel member seated?
No, no. In fact, it's better than last time.
Okay. You're going to get a copy of the tentative written decision today. That decision will be effective in 90 days after review. A transcript and a copy of that decision will automatically be sent to you.
Mm-hmm.
You have a right to appeal within 90 days of the effective date of the decision. Now, you're not required to discuss the matter with the panel. You're not required to admit to the offense. However, the panel does accept as true the court findings. In other words, we're not going to retry you.
Right. Good.
Mr. Douglas, any confidential information going to be used?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right. Mr. Manson, did you get a copy? Did you get a packet like this?
Someone offered me something if I would sign something. But then someone else told me not to sign anything because my name was worth a lot of money and they didn't want me using it as another economy.
All right, I understand. Do you remember whether or not the items that are checked on this piece of paper were the same items that they offered to you?
I'm not much at this book stuff. Let's see. What am I looking for exactly?
Just to make sure that you had an opportunity to look at a board report and your psych report and all that.
Oh, yeah, the guy offered that. Yeah, he brought that into my attention.
Okay, good.
But I'm not sure on the little scratches.
Okay, well, I understand that. Are you ready to proceed without...
yes, sir. I'm here for you. Okay. Whatever you wish.
Do you have any preliminary objections before we start?
Well, yeah, I have a lot of objections, but no one's ever been interested before.
Okay, do you have any objections to the way the hearing is being
No,
conducted?
No, it seems reasonable.
Okay, that's kind of what we're after as well.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any objections to the hearing? Okay, do you swear to tell us the truth today?
Always.
All right, that's all I ask. All right, I've got some stuff to read here, so I'll be a minute. We'll start with offense summary. Says shortly before midnight on 8/8 of 1969, Manson informed his crime partners that now was the time for helter-skelter. Crime partners were directed to accompany Charles Tex Watson in order to carry out Manson's orders. Crime partners were Linda Kasabian, Susan
Where's
Atkins.
this coming from? Who's writing this?
This comes from the probation report from when you first came into the system.
Oh, well, it's a little distorted.
Well, when I get through reading this, then I'll ask you and you can give me your version. All right?
All right.
And you can straighten it out. Anyway, crime partners were Tex Watson, Linda Kasabian, Susan Atkins, and Patricia Kernwinkle. Watson drove to CO Drive. A vehicle containing victim Stephen Parent approached the gate. Watson stopped him at gunpoint and fatally shot him. All of the crime partners then proceeded to the house and gained entrance except Linda Kasabian, who stood lookout. Once inside, they murdered Abigail Ann Folger, inflicting 28 multiple stab wounds to her body. Wojciech Frykowski was killed by a gunshot wound to his back and multiple force trauma of blunt nature to his head. Sharon Tate Polanski, who was 8 months pregnant, was killed by multiple stab wounds. Jay Sebring was killed by multiple stab wounds. On 8/10 of 1969, Manson drove his crime partners to a location near the residence of Lino and Rosemary LaBianca. Manson entered the LaBianca home alone and at gunpoint tied up the victims. He impressed them that they would not be harmed and that a robbery was taking place. He then returned to the vehicle containing the crime partners and directed them to enter the residence and kill the occupants. Crime partners Charles Watson, Patricia Kernwinkle, Leslie Van Houten entered the residence and Manson drove away from the scene. Crime partners entered the residence and killed Lino LaBianca by inflicting stab wounds to his neck and abdomen and carved the word war on his stomach. Rosemary LaBianca was killed by multiple stab wounds to the neck and the trunk. At both the murder scenes, the crime partners used the blood of the victims to write words on the walls. The other count, murder first, count 1, case number 267861. On 7/26/1969, Manson with crime partners Bussolay, Atkins, Grogan, and Davis tortured Gary Hinman by severing a part of his right ear and causing a laceration to the left side of his face. Subject wanted Hinman to sign over his property. On 7/27/69, Hinman was killed by a stab wound through the heart, which was inflicted by Bussolay. That's a statement of facts, Mr. Manson.
As they've been presented to you.
That's correct.
Yes, sir. Out through the paratroopers in Arizona highways, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. That's my daddy too, you know. But then you keep coming back and telling me I'm less than an American because I don't, and I've already whipped everybody 3 times. I don't have any problems with anybody. And you got me on PC, won't accept my word. I was Judge Older. He was Charles Manson. I'm Judge Older. I'm Tiger Man in the zoo. In San Diego, I ride a motorcycle. I ride a motorcycle in L.A., a bunch of straight Satans, call themselves devils, say they're get down, say they got the money over on another edge of town. They got the Beach Boys tied up in their contracts. You can't get into the real estate because Pasadena is a submarine that's run by Jody Hoover, who's over in the chapel, who comes from Colombia with the drug cartel, saying he got money with 2 guns and he taking that pussy. I blew him to hell. It's that simple. Linda Bell, ding along, sing along. Mitch Miller, the movies. I'm Bing Crosby, hard as a hobo, loves to roam in fields of clover. I'm Gene Autry. I'm all those guys. I'm in other children. I'm down a wave or 2 up underneath you. What you're doing, you're over flying with the eagles and the fathers of great lands, but I'm king on other wings and baddest motherfucker that ever did live. I'm terrible. Adolf Hitler was a little biology girl in the class over there at the University of Southern California. That's where the big eagles fly. Yeah, I know Fort MacArthur. I know Fort MacArthur. Chain of command. I understand.
Are you responsible for these murders?
I'm responsible for life itself. If God were to wink one Greek Apollo through the sky, and those satellites, I've been watching them ever since Terminal Island, in the diamond mines of, what's his name, Jomo Kenyatta, Mauma, remember him? I was in prison with him.
Are you responsible for the murders?
I'm responsible for Scotch
Hearing by Dr. William O. Evans, senior psychologist, and Mr. Manson, I'm not going to read all of it, I'm only going to read parts of it.
Yeah.
Under mental status at the
But this
time,
will go in history books, right?
well, I don't know.
Chapter, how much?
I don't know. It's under the mental status at the time of the examination. It said that you displayed no psychotic criteria, no thought disorder or affective disturbance. You were alert, cooperative, and oriented. He was appropriately groomed and dressed. He calculated well with the examiner since he considers that he was treated fairly, and on one occasion his complaints concerning treatment at the hands of certain custody personnel were concluded to his satisfaction. He expressed gratitude accordingly. As usual, inmate Manson spoke in metaphor and allegory, and on occasion had to be reminded to be more linear and concrete. He has a clinical history of exercising control, manipulation, and power over his associates and followers, fueled by narcissistic rage for real or imagined slights and disrespect taken literally by his followers as license and license to kill. He reported no current psychiatric complaints. His primary complaint was that his guitar, which was given him by a journalist in return for granting him an interview, had been taken away from him 2 years ago. He reveals sexist and racist views and regularly rails against the system for abuses to the disenfranchised and the environment. Previously, he reported to his counselor that he had been upset because he recommended placement in the Category K program at CMF. This examiner feels that currently Category K placement is not appropriate. Inmate Manson has exhibited considerable intelligence by concerning himself with the abstract and being very aware of just noticeable differences in others, and has demonstrated a variety of manipulation and control upon others using powerful reinforcements of sex, drugs, passive-aggressive rewards and punishments, and a community setting with communal economics and lifestyle. He goes on to say that he exhibits some signs of severity, moderate due to incarceration and the impending hearing, and you're given a current GAF score of 75, and your highest GAF score in the past year was 75. Under progress and prognosis, it says his progress is not necessarily remarkable, apart from a normal maturation with age. His prognosis is not good, since his disciplinary history since the board hearing 5 years ago speaks for itself. He appears resigned to the present condition and position, and at his last departing comment to this examiner was, "This is a better life than an old folks' home." Under conclusions and recommendations, inmate Manson is competent and responsible for his own behavior. He has a capacity to abide by institutional standards. There's no current evidence of that suggests psychopathology. His violence potential is still considered greater than average, as a discussion concerning the LaBianca murder will attest. This examiner is not suggesting the board to get into this due to time restraints. Since inmate Manson practices manipulation, power, and control over his followers, he is still considered to be a dangerous man, especially if he were to partake of illicit drug abuse. He has not yet begun to contemplate underlying causes of his current attitude other than to see himself as a victim of the system. He has some considerable artistic ability, and he should be encouraged to continue such controlled outlets for this expression. This examiner has seen noticeable improvement in his verbal ability in a one-to-one setting. His physical and medical needs seem to be well taken care of. The examiner read his medical file with interest. He is maintaining as well as can be expected under the circumstances, and the doctor notes that programming decisions can be based on custody issues rather than mental health factors. And having read portions of that psychiatric report, Mr. Manson, I'll return it to the chair.
Those last two lines, would you say those again?
Well, he said your programming decision should be based on custody issues rather than mental health factors. And I'll return it to the chair, Mr. Manson.
Yeah. That's whoever did that did a really good job, didn't they?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was a real nice report.
Did you want to comment on it, Mr. Manson?
Yeah, I thought the guy, he had a lot of good things down there pretty much. Yeah, I'm a lot of those things. He's making me look a little better than I really am, but yeah, you know, whatever it takes is where I have to roll. I ain't got no choice about it. If I had a choice and you guys open up the gates of wherever, you know, I'd get on down the road and you could have this Charlie Manson thing that they created, because they haven't even seen me. Not really. They've seen all them faces they would play. You know, they don't want to see me, actually.
All right. Mr. Van Court will talk to you about your parole plans.
Yes, sir. Mr. Manson, what are your parole plans? Do you have any parole plans?
Oh, well, I thought about that, and I knew that would be a question, and I wrote that down in one of my little books. Let me see if I can gather these thoughts properly. Say it once more.
Yeah. Do you have any parole plans at all, Mr. Manson?
I have any parole plans? Oh, yeah. I was going to ask you. Are you in prison? I'm here doing a job for God and country.
I see.
The United States Supreme Court gave me my life back. Took away the death penalty. Said it was cruel and unusual punishment. I agreed with them. And I've been serving it ever since. Because they gave me my life, so I give it right to them. It's their life too, you know. The government that I know about, my Teddy Roosevelt and my sergeant and my lieutenants and all that kind of stuff, you know. I never grew up to do all that kind of stuff, but I've seen other people doing it. I always wanted to. You know, it would have been nice if I could have gotten the service, you know, and been some kind of military guy, a United States Marshal or something, you know. But I've been stuck in jail watching everybody else live their life, so then as I grow up, I begin to see that I've been out there just as much as I'm in here too sometimes, you know. And even though I don't make sense right now, that later on sometimes, like, just filters in somewhere, it says, hey, who we got locked up in there? I mean, what is this trip? You really want to know?
Okay, well, no, Mr. Manson.
I don't think so.
We'll say if down the line you were actually given a parole date, what would your plans be?
I would go poof.
Poof?
Okay. Poof.
Now, I noticed that in the most recent future plans, it says residence, Manson offers no plans for his future.
I don't have a future, guy. I never had a future.
Well, then in the report back in '92, it says Manson stated that he has no plans for the future. He stated that he was not interested in paroling, and that he would be lost in our society.
Right on.
His main concern at this time would be to be released to a general population setting in order to program. In other words, you want to get back a general population in prison.
I was supposed to have been sent to the main line of San Quentin from Vacaville, but they sent me over here and locked me up so they could play act my face over there to some movies.
I see.
Some more.
Okay, so you really don't have any parole plans?
Well, I don't think parole would be a reasonable perspective. I think I wouldn't take a parole anyway, not really. I'm thinking, you know, I'm here, we're going through the changes of it, but I would like to go back to court. I'd like to get my chance, my day in court. We're based and founded on that. Sooner or later, even if I die tonight, you're still going to have to give me a trial. Sooner or later, that court is going to click. And when that big chair clicks, that's going to be right, and I'm going to get my rights.
Mr. Manson, those are questions that are just part of the parole hearing, is to come up with what your plans are so that we have some idea.
Well,
now, the other phase of the portion of the hearing that I'm handling is letters. And we received a whole bunch of letters regarding you personally. There's apparently there was some kind of a coupon in one of the magazines or newspapers about whether the general population wanted you to parole or wanted you to remain in prison.
Island, in the diamond mines of, what's his name, Jomo Kenyatta, Malma, remember him? I was in prison with him.
Are you responsible for the murders?
I'm responsible for Scotch and the bagpipe. And I killed a lot of people in my life, I have. I've done a lot of things that I'm not ashamed of. I got convicted for things I didn't do, and then I got loose for things that I did. I was everything that a man was supposed to be down on the level that I was walking on. I was a hobo and everything I knew to know, and came back on the English language as if they were my words, and that I had discovered this whole damn thing myself. And I was really Christopher Columbus. And then I went and asked the doctor what he thought. And he killed himself because somebody else was laying with his woman, and he was jealous. And I said, isn't that silly? Why can't y'all just get along, love each other, you know?
Okay.
So if that's guilty, it'll bring to history, if you got one.
I understand. All right, let me go through your record real quick. It says, as a juvenile, you were placed in Gabalt School for Boys.
Yes, sir.
In Indiana.
Yes, sir.
It was in 1948 for burglarizing a grocery store.
I think the time was a little off. I think it was 44.
Okay. Well, let me finish this, and then you can correct it, whatever's wrong in here. It says you went AWOL from school and placed in Indiana State Reformatory in Indiana. Went AWOL, some other boys. Subsequently stole an automobile and drove to Beaver, Utah. Arrested in 1951, convicted of the Dyer Act. Sentenced to the National Training School for Boys in Washington, D.C. Paroled in 1954. 55, Los Angeles, Grand Theft Auto, 5 years probation. 56, probation violation under the Dyer Act. 1957, federal prison, Los Angeles, attempted escape, 5 years probation. 59, forgery in Los Angeles. You got 5 years probation. 1960, Los Angeles, probation violation, 10 years federal prison, McNeil Island, Washington. 1967, Ukiah, interfering with an officer, 3 years probation. 68, South Ventura, reproducing or possessing a face mile of a driver's license. 1969, and that's when you came in for this. Is all that pretty correct?
Sounds reasonable.
Okay.
So, Charles Manson had quite a...
The other board didn't even consider what you're considering.
Okay.
And I appreciate your considerations in this area. Those were the days that set my mind to do what I had to do for what I had to do. I had a captain named Kirk who would get 4 other dudes to hold me on 4 points and take a big leather strap and teach me what he wanted done. He wanted it done. There was no in between.
Which institution was that?
That was Plainfield.
Plainfield?
Plainfield. That was right after the Second World War. If you remember, a lot of the people from Europe came over here and got jobs right after that. So that era of confinement is not equal to what we're doing now.
Okay.
It was pretty treacherous place in them days because we were at war. So I've been raised in the stomach of this beast, and I've been living and doing whatever I have to do. If I can live in peace, I'll run and live in peace. If I can get along with people, I'll get along. You know, I'll do my best to do everything I can. But when they mess with my music, or they fuck with my family, or they bother my dog, or steal my cows or mistreat my horses, I'll do whatever I feel is necessary to do whatever I feel is necessary, because I believe in George Washington. I believe in the Constitution of George Washington. I believe in the United States government. I don't believe in Abraham Lincoln. I never did. I don't like him at all. That's the truth.
Okay, thank you. Well, would you give your attention now to Mr. Douglas? He's going to talk to you about what you've done since you've been in the institution.
Good afternoon, Mr. Manson.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about how you've been getting along since you had your last parole suitability hearing, which was in 4/21/1992. Your classification score currently is 343. And of course, the first thing I reviewed in your C file was your 115s. And I counted 13 115s that you've received since your last hearing, with a total of 35 since you've been in CDC. Your last 115 was for threatening staff on 10/31/1996. And then you got another one on 6/21/96 for disobeying orders, 4/27/96 for disobeying orders, and 1/14/95 for male harassment. You got 9/25/95 for threatening to kill a peace officer. On 4/5/95, you got one for illegal possession of illegal business dealings with narcotics. I guess were involved in that. On 2/18/95, you failed to report. On 1/4/94, you were out of bounds. On 7/21/94, you had an unauthorized tape recorder. On 7/21/93, you had possession of a stabbing in
4. When the Navy intelligence opened up Terminal Island for the government prison system, they was turning it over from a Section 8 into a prison perspective. I put everybody in Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia, Indiana, and they sent me out here on the coast and set me on the yard out there to make a new prison system. I didn't know what they was doing. I didn't know what I was doing. But the federal prisons are run like ships. They're like Marion, Illinois, and Leavenworth are run like out of USS Missouri and all that. So being in prison all these years, I look at the government and the perspectives of the world in a different perspective, not the same way you guys do.
Right.
I look at it from the patriarch more than the matriarch. Matriarch is more in the play of the world that's existing today. But in my mind and heart, I would want the patriarch, because naturally I'm a patriarch. I believe in the field of honor, and I believe if someone offends you, that you have the right to smack them in the mouth, punch them out, and dare them to come out and fight till, you know, the field of honor is there.
Okay.
You know.
All right, I understand. All right, you
That's
also,
the way prison is run.
yeah.
Well, I run that.
You have a chrono in there too on 2/18/94 for programming per expectations and having acceptable behavior.
Yeah.
And you know, then you turned in a wire or something. You turned in before your last.
All right,
hearing,
but see, you got to understand, this is corrections. Department of Corrections, they have a bunch of men in uniform, and they're always correcting. That's what they do.
Right.
That's their business. They get paid to do that. They're good at it.
Right.
There's a lot of good men in uniform that are making these corrections. Well, I'm in here too, and I'm stuck in between the cracks in the wall, and when something don't go the way I think it should go, and I have to stand up on that and make a point to someone, I've got to do it whether I want to or not. If the lieutenant comes to me and tells me, well, here's a restricted area, here's a broom, go sweep that, and no one's been down that hallway for 10 years, so I go through that. You can imagine where I got to dig up keys. I got to be all the way over with the Roman Empire coming back from the Greeks, because like Roman Polanski was very mad about what's that other guy's name that won that suit over there in Poland on this case here. This case you got here, this guy won a suit. Perskowski's kid grew up and sued somebody, or somebody sued him, and they beat me out of some money that had something to do with Guns N' Roses, that had a magazine or something they were doing.
Okay, well, then if that is all that was in your C file that I have read, then I'm going to go to the written portion of the hearing.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me finish. I haven't been trying to be good.
You haven't been trying to.
No, sir.
You haven't.
No, wait a minute. And I haven't been trying to be bad. I'm just trying to get left, you know, I'm just trying to live. That's all.
And Charles Manson also trying to make sure that this parole board never releases him. And that seems that that's exactly what he's doing. He referred there to Roman Polanski. He was the husband of one of the victims, Sharon Tate, in this case. He said that Roman Polanski was very angry, not particularly surprising considering that his pregnant wife was killed. We are going to take a break. When we come back, more of Charles Manson's parole.
Most notably, subject's recent CDC 115 of 10/31/96, and that, of course, was one relating to threatening to staff. The report summarizes by saying, considering the commitment offense, prior record, and prison adjustment, this writer believes the prisoner would probably pose a high degree of threat to the public if released from prison at this time. This evidenced by subject's continued in custody misconduct since his last appearance before the Board of Prison Terms. Subject also poses a threat to the public due to his continued influence on others.
Yeah, he's right, that's right, I agree with that.
There have been several prior psychiatric reports which reflect the belief that Manson's violence potential within the prison setting seems to be below that of the average prisoner. But as M. Lyons, PhD staff psychologist at San Quentin, stated in his psychological evaluation submitted to the Board of Prison Terms in 1989, his dangerousness lies in his highly developed ability to influence others. And that concludes your post-conviction factors. Now I'll go to your psychiatric report, Mr. Manson.
Yeah, I don't get to respond to that last little...
Yes, sure. Why don't you take a minute in response to what...
We all robot to right, R-I-G-H-T. If we stay up all night and look at right, we're still looking at right, and we're all right if we're right. So don't blame me. See, I'm taking over your minds.